Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. And they say that when you're with enjoyable people, you enjoy yourself. This is a guy I enjoy being around, Mike Dunn.
Right back at you, Greg.
Thank you, Mike.
It's my pleasure.
You have a new job, and you're in charge of a venerable institution now, in the director phase, that's made a big difference in Salisbury. Kind of faded out a little bit, but we're going to try to ramp it up.
Well, the Greater Salisbury, I'm honored to be the new president and CEO of the Greater Salisbury Committee. We are 49 years young. We'll be celebrating our 50th year next year, and I think you put it really well, a venerable institution, an organization that has been, gosh, if you think about the community of Salisbury and remove all that the Greater Salisbury Committee has done over the years, you'd be missing Warwick Community College, you'd be missing the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, you'd be missing Salisbury-Wicomico Economic Development, Junior Achievement, Salisbury Neighborhood Housing. So it's been an historically very good ride for Greater Salisbury Committee, and I am very humbled and honored to be sitting in that chair and at that great organization.
Now, I know I'm supposed to interview you, but one of my favorite stories is Bob Cook, who was the founding director of the Greater Salisbury Committee. And when I was a young reporter, I got assigned to go interview Bob Cook for a special section, and I'd never heard of the Greater Salisbury Committee. So I went in, rushed, busy, and said, well, Mr. Cook, I've never heard of your organization. Can you just tell me what you do? And he could have been very offended. Underneath, I could tell he was a little bit, as well he should have been. And he took me around the town, and verbally he said, Greg, what does the Salisbury Committee do? He goes, you like the Civic Center? I said, I love the Civic Center. It's great. He goes, we wouldn't have the Civic Center if it wasn't for the Greater Salisbury Committee. He goes, you like the airport? I said, it's a great airport. He goes, we wouldn't have that airport if it wasn't for the Greater Salisbury. And he went through the YMCA and Salvation Army, the expansion on the west side, everything that was tied back somehow to Greater Salisbury Committee. The people in that room could make a difference.
And, you know, Bob Cook, we just celebrated his 90th birthday. You guys ran a great feature in the newspaper. Thank you for that. You know, you follow in the steps of Bob Cook, and he was kind enough, Greg. He has a scrapbook, for lack of a better way of putting it, and he has the yearly reports of the Greater Salisbury Committee, starting in about, you know, the late 1970s. And you can see the history, and to your point, the organization under his leadership, and you figure how it got started. It was the Frank Perdue's, and it was the Richard Henson's, and it was the Frank Morris's, and it was the movers and shakers, the leaders of business and industry and the philanthropic community and institutions. And you know, that's one of the threads. I've had the pleasure of being on this show a few times, and the consistent thread that we talk about is this community, and it matters. And you're looking at Jake Day tapping into it now. This community is a giving community, and part of the reason is that there are organizations like the Greater Salisbury Committee that are quite literally dedicated. On our wall in our conference room are the words, you know, we exist to identify community problems and seek to find solutions to those problems. And, you know, we're a catalyst to improve the community. And I think it's reflective, and the Greater Salisbury Committee as a thread through this community helps us get where we are today.
And it's amazing to have your mission statement stated so perfectly.
On the wall.
On the wall. So when you're in meetings and things are wandering, it's like, well, what are we doing here? What's the point? Look at the wall.
I will often, honestly, if we have new people in the room, and I've only been on the job for 4 months, I will have them take a moment and look at the wall. And with that, you get to see what we're all about. And, you know, we're involved in that today. I'm not sure that there are necessarily brick and mortar things in the future of Greater Salisbury, but we're involved in a lot of things right now that are pretty exciting and we think important. So it's good stuff.
All right. Talk about your list. What are you working on?
Yeah, well, just coming up next week, there's been discussions about another of the cottages at Holly Center closing. Greater Salisbury Committee had a hand in forming the Holly Center years ago. So we have been in consultation with the governor's office. Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio has been wonderful to us. We have the Secretary of Health and Mental Hygiene, the Lower Shore delegation, Jim Perdue, who's been integral to the success of Holly Center. We're going to be meeting in the Greater Salisbury Committee conference room and trying to bring forward a way forward that cements, hopefully once and for all, the state of Maryland recognizing that an IFC facility like the Holly Center, there is now and always will be a need for those most vulnerable residents of the state of Maryland. So we're hoping to find and map a way forward where, at the very minimum, the state will commit to always keeping open 4 of the cottages, and then perhaps look at the rest of the Holly Center facility and determine how it can fit into the needs of the state inventory of facilities like that. So we're doing that. We just submitted in Mayor Day's budget that is under consideration right now. Jim Thomas, who works, proud to say, works with me at Greater Salisbury Committee. One of the ideas that he pulled out of the scrapbook from about 1982 was a summer jobs program. So we put forth and outlined a summer jobs program for the mayor to consider. And sure enough, it is in his budget for consideration. And our task will be to try and find some matching funding for that so that we can employ 20 to 40 kids in the city of Salisbury and teach them job skills and coach them up. And workforce development and things like that have always been integral to what we do at Greater Salisbury. So those are a couple of things we're into right now.
And when I interviewed the mayor the other day, and he got very excited about this summer jobs program.
Yeah. I mean, it's Jake has a theory, and I meet with him monthly, and I'm grateful for that. Jake, we all know, is working heavily on the infrastructure and the redevelopment of the city, and he kind of draws an arc that tries to redevelop the downtown. But the arc that runs parallel to it is the one that says we've got to bring the community along with it, and we've got to find the opportunities where, I talk about it as though there are 2 Salisburys out there. There's the one that we all know and we all like to hang out in, and then there's the other one that maybe we kind of look askance at. And Jake knows that in order to revitalize and redevelop the physical infrastructure, we've got to bring the community along with it. And so it's great to be able to serve as a tool that he can use and call on, and we're trying to cement the relationship that has historically been strong between the city of Salisbury and Greater Salisbury, with a few bumps along the road like all organizations do. We're trying to cement that and make it as strong as we can.
Right. There was a moment this winter where I was blown away by something you did.
Yeah.
Water for Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
So when I saw that Greater Salisbury Community was helping orders, I was like, that's not what they do. That's somebody else. This is wrong. But that was a step that you took, kind of a different than what you all have done.
And I have been hired to try to bring us into a little bit of a different direction, and I'm trying to do that. The Water for Flint initiative, we have as one of our core initiatives this year, we're working to develop some programs to help the so-called at-risk population that is impacting our schools and our community and our crime rate, et cetera. Well, in order to do that the right way, it can't be people who look like you and me that are out there trying to determine what are the best ways to help the at-risk community. We needed to invite them to the table. So in February, I was on the job for all of 4 weeks. I reached out to some heavily involved, great young members of the community they were mainly African American. They're out there, Jermichael Mitchell and Mandel Copeland and Kevin Lindsay. Those guys are out there making a difference in their communities, in the Doverdales of the world, in the Jersey Roads of the world. We brought them into the Greater Salisbury Committee. And we learned that they, while helping their own community, were actually trying to reach out to the people of Flint, Michigan. And they were getting cases of bottled water donated. And the only thing missing was they didn't know how to get the water. They'd gotten 4,000 cases of water donated. They didn't know how to get it to Flint, Michigan. And I called them in, and I met with Mandel Copeland at my desk in my office, and I said, we, the Greater Salisbury Committee, when do you need the truck? How much do you need? I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that that's where we needed to kind of show, we needed to put our skin in the game. And when I told him, Mandel, that we were going to supply this truck for him, quite literally his hands came up and covered his face because he was overcome with emotion. And that's our job. There's a problem in the community. We identified it. They identified a problem in another community. How could we not support that? Thanks to Jim Purdue and Purdue
a guy
Farms.
with trucks.
Bingo.
You knew a guy with trucks?
We knew a guy with trucks. The Arthur W. Purdue Foundation helped make that happen, and we were able to get that first truck delivered to Flint, Michigan. They ultimately got 3 more trucks full of water delivered to Flint, Michigan. And how can you not feel better about your community when you know that there's a group of young men who are so immersed in trying to make their community better, reaching halfway across the country to impact. And it was just a beautiful story, and we were honored and thrilled to be part of it.
And it's not going to solve Flint's problem, but we're doing our part
to help.
And what you're also doing is you're building these relationships within. There's like a little test thing here, and that way you can work with these guys on other things.
And we're working on them, again, getting back to some of the threads that Mayor Day is working on, the community center idea. He's got an idea for a Salisbury Youth Advisory Board. Well, we have an idea for this at-risk community, and we're probably going to merge the two. So, yeah, you got to build credibility out there. And I can sit around my desk and act as though the Greater Salisbury Committee can solve all problems alone, but we can't do that. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to. The Greater Salisbury Committee kind of operated traditionally as almost a standalone, and Bob Cook and the great efforts of the men and women who came during his day, they were able to do that. But we can't operate that way anymore.
It was a different time then.
It was a different time. And so, the third day on the job, I'm at the desk of Ernie Colburn, the president of the Salisbury Area Chamber. Within 2 weeks, I'd met with Kathleen Momay at the United Way and Erica Joseph at the Community Foundation. And, the Greater Salisbury Committee, in order to do what we need to do for this community, we have to engage and be able to leverage. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what I've been hired to do, and so far, so good.
Now, you mentioned the chamber. And people sort of interpreted the dynamics here as, for a long time, that the chamber was the House of Commons.
Yeah, you wrote on that, exactly.
The House of Lords was the Greater Salisbury Committee. No one knows what goes on in the House of Lords, but maybe that's a good thing.
No, look.
Well, I mean, like in England, no one
knows.
Exactly,
no, right.
And all the attention is on the House of Commons, but there are roles for both of these groups.
We met the other day. One of the ideas that we're advancing together, we're going to have the Salisbury Chamber, the Greater Salisbury Committee, and the Community Foundation. We are working toward the creation of a Wicomico County Education Foundation. The 3 organizations, the 2 most significant and powerful business networks and the largest philanthropic network, we're going to work together. We're stealing an idea that we saw in Worcester County. They have a Worcester County Education Foundation. So why not put together a new tool that the new superintendent, Dr. Donna Hanlon, can use? So we're starting to form a steering committee, and we will be rolling that out within the next 6 months or so. So yeah, it's an honor and a privilege to work with Ernie, and the Salisbury Chamber is operating at a pretty high level of function, and we want to try to match that and go stride for stride with them.
Right, and there's a theory that the chamber kind of ramped up because Greater Salisbury was not as involved in things. They've kind of filled a void there.
Organizations, communities, they ebb and flow, and the Greater Salisbury Committee had probably gone through one of those cycles, and the chamber, to their credit, they saw an opening, and with Ernie's tenacity and building a great staff and getting people involved, they were able to get functioning. And one of the things I told Ernie when we first met is that, and I say this consistently, a fully functioning and viable Greater Salisbury Committee, as we have traditionally always been, can only help the community. And everywhere I go, there's a general sense of agreement on that. And so that's what we're trying to do. And again, it's been It's been a lot of fun in these first couple of months. We're putting a new website together. We have a Facebook page.
Greater Salisbury Committee with a Facebook
well, that's
page.
and that's the point. I mean, that's kind of unheard of, but I would invite people to go look at it, because what we're trying to do when we interviewed the gentleman who's doing our website is Chris McIntosh, and he just redid the Salisbury-Wycomico Economic Development website.
Doing great work over there.
Doing great work. He did Jake Day's mayoral website, and he kind of interviewed me. And we've come up with this kind of saying that we're kind of working with, which is that the Greater Salisbury Committee kind of sits at an intersection of ideas and people and resources and challenges. And so it's a neat intersection to kind of go to work at every day. And it's I dare say the word fun, but it's enjoyable and it's gratifying. And to be able to work with, Salisbury Independent has been very helpful. You're having me here today. We're just trying to spread the word about what it is that we're out there doing and where we think we're headed.
What's it like for you, kid growing up in Salisbury, riding your bike everywhere, seeing things, knowing the town like most people don't know it, and have it be part of you, and then you're able to contribute and still have it enmeshed in everything that you do and think about all the time? What's that like?
I think it's a lot of fun, to be honest with you. I say this a lot, that my parents, I got a front row seat, my parents and their peers, the Salisbury JCs of the mid to late 1960s and early 70s, anything that happened in this town happened by and large as a result of the Salisbury JCs.
And the JCs are back.
And they're back.
The last 3 years, they've been tremendous.
I got a front row seat to watching it, and I guess it hit home. And here's where I am. And my philosophy on that is it's a great big world out there. And I know I can't do much to solve the challenges of the world, but if we can all commit to making our little corner of the world a little bit better, then that's what I'm committed to doing. So it's fun. It's fun to know that, riding a bike through the city park and hanging out at the Elks Club and goofing off at the YMCA. And, literally, Greg, I played on the hills when they cleared the land for the old Salisbury Mall to be created. My friends and I got kicked off those hills by the construction crews at the Salisbury Mall. And now to know that I'm kind of sitting in this chair where there's been immense responsibility and measurable results, it's a little daunting, but it's also, I don't know, it seems like the right thing to be doing. Much like sitting here with you and what you're doing, you're the same guy that I am. You're now at your second, you've built 2 successful newspapers. You and I have a lot of that same thing, and it is fun. This is where we are, and we're one of those threads that a lot of things, we have a lot of institutional knowledge, and so let's pass along and share it. It's kind of enjoyable.
Now, because I'm such a negative guy, when I first heard you got this job, I was like, oh, there goes Red, White, and Boom.
Nah.
He's going to hand it off to someone. It's just not. It's going to be fine, but it's not going to be the same. Reassure everyone on Red, White, and Boom.
Oh, Red, White, and Boom.
First, tell us what it is.
Sure, Red, White, and Boom is the Salisbury Free Community Fireworks. 5 years ago, we didn't have free community fireworks. We'd been on hiatus for 6 years, and I just woke up one day and I said, that's enough, we're bringing fireworks back. So we're now up and running. We're ready to go the 4th of July. I'm out there raising money right now, so if anybody wants to make a contribution to Red, White, and Boom, we do that up through the Community Foundation.
Right.
The fireworks.
You've got a great endowment there.
We do. We've been able to successfully.
So someone else handles all that, which is good.
We will have somebody else running Red, White, and Boom at some point. We've got a few people that are interested, and they're wonderful people. But it's fireworks on the 4th of July, and we'll be at County Stadium again this year. We've got the city helping us. The county, Bob Culver, has offered the Civic Center parking lot, and tourism, Jake Day with Public Works and Fire and Police. It's literally what I'm doing at the Greater Salisbury Committee, which is you leverage and you form partnerships, and that's how Red, White, and Boom has been able to be successful.
So you're still going to be the guy another year?
I'm going to be the guy for this year, and then we'll see how it goes from there. Yes, okay. I can promise you 4th of July fireworks this year.
So we can start worrying after that.
We do not have to worry. There will never be a time, as far as I'm breathing air, that there won't be free community fireworks in Salisbury.
Now, you were just honored recently by the Chamber of Commerce.
As were you. Congratulations.
Well, yeah. Mine's an accident, but you actually achieved something.
They honored Red, White, and Boom with their Arts and Culture Award at the Chamber Awards, where you got the Grand Poobah of the Chamber. Well, congratulations! Look,
I'll never get a culture award, I'm sure.
Well, I didn't. As I said that, I didn't know that firing fireworks in the air classified as culture and arts, but. I was very honored. You were there that night. I kind of got.
What happened?
Well, I tried to tell a good story about.
He cried.
I cried.
He cried.
I did, and
I was glad he cried because then when it came my turn, I didn't cry because I'm like, I'm not going to cry.
I had a 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy on that first. I won't cry this time, but he walked up, or he was driven up by his dad. He had earned $5 the day before working in his yard. And he told his dad that he wanted to contribute the money to Red, White, and Boom because the fireworks were back. Well, it's just, I lost it that night at the chamber. I didn't expect to, but it's look, I've gotten donations for Red, White, and Boom as high as $10,000, but I guarantee you the 5 $1 bills that were handed to me by a 5 to 6-year-old boy that worked in his yard, that you carry that stuff to your grave. That is as good as it gets. And so I guess I got a little emotional in telling that story last week, and oh well, that's what happened.
Yeah. Where do you want to see Greater Salisbury Committee 2-3 years from now?
Well, we want to be exactly where we've always been. We have been a very important part of the historical accomplishment, making this community move forward. I want us to be at that intersection, exactly as I said. I want people, when there is an issue in this town, whether it's the mayor of Salisbury or the county executive or Lower Shore delegation, if there's a problem and it's been identified, we'll be able to apply our 85 business leaders, our presidents of the universities, and Dr. Janet and Ray Hoy and Dr. Bell and Peggy Nalepa. We got to figure that if there's a challenge out there, these 100 or so minds that gather at Greater Salisbury, we ought to be able to solve any challenge that arises. So that's where I want us to be. I want us to be an organization that has been what we've always been, which is a group that can make some things happen in this community and try to move us forward. It's not complicated. It's really as simple as that.
Right. But no bricks and mortars thing on the horizon?
Well, I don't, I'm not sure that we can't build another airport. We don't need another community college. To be determined. One of the bricks and mortars things actually that we're trying to work on now, there's the opioid and heroin epidemic. There's a local group, it's called Project Out. It's modeled after an organization called TROSA down in the Raleigh-Durham area. It will be a bricks and mortar thing. It's a 2-year rehab after acute care setting. So we're starting to get our hands in that, and that might be a bricks and mortar thing. I don't know if we're going to find an existing facility, but that's something that we've started to work on. So maybe, but
right.
I'm not concentrated on bricks and mortars. If there's an opportunity and it presents itself, we'll act accordingly. But we're probably just going to go and Water for Flint and summer jobs programs and just again continue to move the community's agenda forward as best we can.
But even something like that, the opioid situation, Greater Salisbury would never get its hands dirty with something like that.
But that's the problem that's presenting itself right now. And so, you look at our community, we've got the situations in our schools and some of the discipline issues and some of the student-on-student violence and the perception of our public schools. That's a problem. Wasn't a problem 10 years ago. Hopefully it won't be a problem 10 years from now. Same thing with the opioid and heroin problem. Might not have been a problem 5 or 10 years ago, but it sure is right now. And so we can't ignore it. And so read the words on our wall. It's a community problem, and we don't get to pick and choose what the problems are. We just got to try to act and try to bring about some solutions where we can. That's all.
Email this morning from a business owner in North Salisbury who's tired of me writing about downtown.
Okay.
That all the business activities up north, stop writing about downtown.
Right.
Obviously someone who doesn't get downtown.
Right. You look at, I'll echo Jake Day, he's the one who's a downtown, and when Jake Day looks out there, and don't forget that he does have expertise in this area and redevelopment and revitalization. He points to towns like Asheville, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, I forget Lancaster, PA. These towns have a successful and vibrant downtown, and it's not an either or. It's not a mutually exclusive situation. we can have a thriving North End, which we do, but we can also have this vibrant heart of the city, which we're trying to do.
Right.
Jake cites a fact that over the last 20 or so years, there's been $600 million worth of development on the North End. Imagine if in the next 20 years there was $600 million of development in the heart of our downtown. Now we've got two pillars of the community. So to that business person, I would ask him or her to say that they're not mutually exclusive, that having a vibrant city center takes us back to our roots, and that's the plan that other communities have used successfully throughout the country, and who's to argue with their success. So,
right. My argument back was when I walk out of Buffalo Wild Wings after a lovely meal with my daughter watching sports, and I look over and I see Hobby Lobby, and in the distance I see Walmart, you could be pretty much in any town.
That's right.
But when I'm on that plaza downtown and I run into people I know and talk about what's going on, I'm in Salisbury.
You are, and it's always been where it's been, and we had to abandon it. Economics made us build an old mall, build a new mall, build a North End. Where would we be without the North End retail district? That said, maybe in a quarter century we'll look back and go, where would we be without this vibrant downtown? And so our headquarters, the Greater Salisbury building, is in the heart and soul
ground zero
of downtown. So it's in the heart and soul of the arts and entertainment district. So we're not just supporting it because that's where we are. We're supporting it because it has historically been the place that mattered in this community. And that's Jake's vision, is try to return it to that. And who's to argue with that?
Yeah, the first Salisbury, it's taken off again.
First Saturday, third Friday, all sorts of opportunities. And so I'm very optimistic about it. There's nothing easy about it. Downtown Main Street is about to basically be a construction zone for 2 years.
Right.
But it's to get us where we need to be in the future. And so sometimes to move forward, you got to sort of take a little pause and put the bricks in place to help us move forward, and that's where we're about to go.
I've been trying to write about that, but there's a little problem with the bidding. The bids came in much higher than the city wanted.
Anticipated,
right.
Sure.
But we're working that. We'll get coverage of that here shortly.
Yeah, I have no doubt. So it's I don't know. We're a community that faces lots of challenges, but from your paper to the Chamber to the Greater Salisbury to the Community Foundation to the United Way to the Board of Ed, we're all trying to do our part to try to. You can't give up.
Right.
You got to keep moving forward.
Well, I need to publicly thank you because this week was my 104th edition of the Salisbury Independent, which is 2 years.
Twice, yeah, exactly.
So we will be celebrating our 2-year anniversary next week.
Congratulations.
And the thing wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you.
Well, I don't know if this thing wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you.
There were moments where we were back and forth and you'd be going, this thing is not going to work, just stop. And I would have stopped.
Well, when you first told me about your concept a few years ago, based on what you were telling me, you were trying to find a niche.
I remember taking the business plan to your house.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, what if he doesn't like this? What am I going to do then?
And I thought it was, I've been behind you. You've made it go, you and your staff, but you've clearly hit, it's the same thread, Greg, whether it's, I just talked about it. We now have a cheerleader. We have a weekly newspaper that is, every newspaper does. This is not a comparison or contrast, but you've brought something new to the community, and clearly the community has responded. And the Chamber Award is verification of that, as is just the stories that you tell every week. And we all fit in, we all find our place, and you found a place, and I congratulate you.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just wanted to thank you.
Well, that's kind of you. Thank you for you and Daryl. Everybody's doing a great job.
Thank you. Well, we wish you well as you continue this journey.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for serving our community.
My pleasure. Thank you.
He's Mike Dunn. He's the president and CEO of the Greater Salisbury Committee, and we welcome him this week. Thank you. I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.